my gosh, guys, I'm so lucky.
These are the funniest fake Minecraft speedruns of all time. This first speedrun begins, and right away, there's already something fake about the spawn. Because if you look into the bottom left corner of the screen, you can clearly see the message of a player getting an achievement. And because the speedrunner literally just spawned in, this achievement has to be coming from an entirely different player. Which leads me to believe the runner is playing on a server, and keep this in mind for later. So, the speedrun begins and the runner collects some wood, crafts some tools, and heads towards the village. Hold on a second. Do you see what's incredibly suspicious at this frame in the speedrun? Well, if you zoom in onto the roof of this village house, you'll actually spot a sign that has one single number, 1,300. And while I'm guessing the runner's friend who just got the achievement is the one who placed this sign here, this number is going to be extremely important later in the speedrun. So, the runner enters the village, where his first order of business is killing the iron golem. And there's two aspects of this iron golem that raise suspicion. To start, when you hit an iron golem in a real Minecraft speedrun, it will immediately start to chase you after taking damage. However, in this speedrun, this iron golem is completely passive after getting hit multiple times. But secondly, when the runner kills the iron golem in this speedrun, what? In the bottom left corner of the screen, you can see a message that a player was killed, which actually means this isn't even a real iron golem, but instead the speedrunner's friend who is using a morph mod. So it's not a surprise that the runner collects far more ingots than normal after killing it. So, after collecting a bunch of extra iron, the runner's next order of business is looting this village chest. And it's actually not the chest we have to be worried about, as it contains completely normal items. But it's actually out of this window that we need to look at, because at this part of the speedrun, you can literally see another player running throughout the village. And first off, it's obvious this is the same player who was just pretending to be the iron golem. But secondly, take a closer look as to what this player is holding in their hand. Is that flint and gold? Wait, what? Was there some sort of new update that I missed? Keep this strange item in mind for later in the run. So, after looting the village chest and gathering a couple of extra beds, the runner then begins to search for a ruins portal. And he actually manages to locate one fairly quickly. Hold on a second. Did you catch how the speedrunner just cheated? Well, it's almost impossible to spot, so I'll give you one more chance to see if you can catch it. You see it now? Well, if you pause the footage at this frame, you can actually see the slightest outline of an invisible block. And this outline actually means there is a barrier block at this location, which is a block that clearly doesn't spawn naturally in a plains biome. And if you play the footage, it's obvious the runner has been following these invisible barrier blocks all the way to the ruins portal. And because a barrier block is an item that can only be obtained through commands, it's pretty obvious the runner's friend was the one who got them and placed them in a very specific path as a way to lead the runner straight to the ruined portal. But I just caught them cheating in 4K. So, the runner locates the ruined portal, and if I have to give him some credit, the loot in this ruined portal chest is completely normal, and he finishes the portal and lights it without any strange activity. But right before the runner is about to spawn into the Nether, pause the footage at this frame, where we can spot a sign for the second time in the speedrun, this time with the number -40. And this is now the second number that we've seen during the speedrun, and make sure you remember both of them. So, the runner enters the Nether, and while I can give him credit for getting the achievement, I can't give him any credit for how he locates this fortress, because he accidentally says something that completely exposes him. Let's take a listen.
So I just take a right turn at this wall, then go over the lava pool and take a sharp left? That's what you said, right?
As you could very clearly hear, the speedrunner is talking to somebody else off camera, most likely the same friend who we've seen throughout the run. And he was clarifying which directions he was supposed to take, meaning his friend had already told him exactly how to locate the fortress. And this guy must have thought his microphone was muted because we just heard everything. So, after taking a right turn at this wall, going over this lava pool, and taking a left turn exactly like we just heard him say, the runner does find himself directly in front of a fortress. But here's where things get very weird, because on the surface, it may look like the runner gets the achievement for entering the fortress. But notice how long it takes for the achievement to appear after the runner enters the fortress. Nearly 15 entire seconds. And this is very weird, considering in a real Minecraft speedrun, you're supposed to get the achievement immediately after you enter. Well, if you look into the left corner of the screen during the exact moment when the achievement appears, you can actually see the runner's friend entering the fortress, which means this delayed achievement was not meant for the speedrunner, but instead the speedrunner's friend. And therefore, the speedrunner hasn't actually gotten the achievement for entering a fortress, meaning he's actually been here before he started recording. And this is made incredibly obvious when the runner is fighting blazes at the blaze spawner, because if you pause at this frame, you can literally spot 2 extra blaze spawners, which were clearly placed by the runner off camera. And that is likely when he got the achievement for entering the Nether. But here's the thing. While these blaze spawners are in fact fake, their only purpose is actually a distraction, because with 3 total blaze spawners, it's pretty obvious there'll be a ton of blazes and a bunch of chaos. And so while the runner is pretending to be distracted by a bunch of these blazes, take a good look into the right side of the screen, where the runner's friend is building some sort of portal out of blackstone. And the runner clearly didn't want us to see his friend building this, so he added extra blaze spawners to spawn more blazes and create a distraction. So, the runner pretty quickly collects 7 blaze rods, where you're probably expecting him to start searching for a bastion. However, he instead decides to make his way towards this strange blackstone portal that we just saw being built a few seconds ago. But after the runner tries to light it using flint and steel, I think it's more than obvious it's not going to work. So what is the runner supposed to do? Well, he immediately types in chat asking for his friend to quote-unquote transfer it? What exactly does the runner want his friend to transfer him? Well, do you remember back near the very beginning of the speedrun, when we caught the speedrunner's friend holding this very strange flint and gold? Well, just a few seconds after typing the message, what? The flint and gold suddenly appears in the runner's inventory, which is clearly the item the runner wanted when he was typing transfer it. And so when he uses this item on the portal, oh my gosh, the portal actually manages to light and looks absolutely insane. But that's not all, because when the runner enters this portal and goes to spawn in, oh my gosh, he has teleported directly into a bastion. So much just happened that it's literally hurting my brain. So, the runner somehow finds himself directly in a bastion, and after crafting an iron pickaxe and collecting gold ingots, the runner starts to trade with a group of nearby piglins. But as the runner is casually throwing his gold, what? One of the piglins suddenly turns into a mutant piglin? This thing is literally giant. And look at the weapon he's holding. This is actually insane. Well, I guess with a giant piglin, that also means you're going to get giant items, because this mutant piglin gives the runner quite possibly the biggest ender pearl that I've ever seen. What in the world is happening? So, after collecting all of the loot from a bunch of normal piglins, and collecting giant loot from the mutant piglin, which luckily go back to the normal size once in the inventory, it's obvious the runner's next order of business is to enter the overworld. But right before the runner is about to spawn back in, pause the footage at this frame, where we can spot the 3rd sign we've seen in the speedrun, which this time has the number 578. And don't worry, these 3 signs will make a ton of sense in just a few moments. So, the runner spawns back into the overworld, where he immediately crafts Eyes of Ender, and after using the process of triangulation, he seems to think the stronghold is located in this direction. But pause. Just a few seconds ago, I pointed out how the runner has seen 3 different signs in the speedrun. To start, he saw the number 1300 on the roof of this village house. Next, he saw the number -40 before heading into the Nether. And finally, he just saw the number 578 in the Bastion. Well, if you put these 3 numbers together, it's quite obvious they make up a set of coordinates. Now, if we play the footage while the runner is quote-unquote using triangulation, it's pretty obvious he isn't following any of the eyes he's throwing, but instead, he's actually making his way towards these exact coordinates. And when the runner finally locates them, he starts digging down, eventually falling straight into the stronghold. So it's pretty obvious the speedrunner's friend knew exactly where the stronghold was located and placed signs with coordinates throughout the speedrun to direct the runner straight to it. I've exposed their cheating yet again. So, the runner drops straight down into the stronghold, where his first order of business is looting the stronghold chest. And while it may look like all of the items here are completely normal, it's actually impossible for a chainmail hat to spawn naturally in this location. So keep this in mind for when the runner is fighting the Ender Dragon. So, after collecting a bit more loot and searching throughout the stronghold, the runner finally manages to locate the end portal room. But wait just a second, did you see that? As the runner is casually making his way up to the portal, notice how an Eye of Ender suddenly appears out of thin air. How is that possible? Well, if you rewind the footage to earlier in the speedrun and pause here, you can actually see the speedrunner's friend holding a potion of invisibility. And if you now go back to when this Eye of Ender magically appeared, you can actually spot floating particles in the air, which are clearly coming from an invis potion. So I think it's pretty obvious the speedrunner's friend was using invisibility, and he was the one who placed this extra eye in the portal. And this was a huge help for the speedrunner, as he now has the exact amount of eyes he needs to light the portal. Come on, dude, seriously? So, the runner lights the portal, enters the end, and things actually look completely normal. As the speedrunner gets the achievement in the bottom left corner, he hasn't gained any weird items in his inventory, and when he makes his way to the surface of the end, the Ender Dragon still has full health. But after the runner breaks a few of the crystals, pause the footage. Do you remember how I just pointed out the runner finding a chainmail hat in the stronghold chest? Which is actually an item that can't spawn there naturally? Well, this isn't your ordinary chainmail hat, because it's literally called the Massive Cap. Interesting. Well, after the runner breaks the crystals, he goes to put on the Massive Cap. What? The runner has suddenly turned into a giant. Wait, hold on a second. This dude is quite literally as big as the obsidian pillars. Oh my gosh, and look at him next to the Ender Dragon. He makes the dragon literally look tiny. Was the Massive Cap an item added in the new update? Well, I guess if your character is literally as big as the pillars, you also gain God Strength. Because the runner pulls out a single stone axe and literally one-shots the Ender Dragon. This next speedrun begins with the runner spawning directly next to a jungle temple. And while there's technically nothing fake about the spawn, the odds of spawning directly next to a jungle temple are 0.001%, so this is definitely something to look out for. Either way, the run begins with the speedrunner collecting some wood, crafting a few tools, and moving towards the jungle temple. There's just one slight issue. The blocks on this part of the jungle temple are made out of stone bricks, which is something that's literally impossible, as these blocks on a real jungle temple are supposed to be cobblestone. Well, when the runner enters the temple and is searching for some loot, they accidentally open their chat, which actually reveals that the speedrunner used some sort of command to spawn in the jungle temple himself. which not only means his spawn was completely fake, but now it's obvious that while the runner was spawning in the structure, he clearly placed the wrong blocks on this part of the temple. So, after a bit more searching in the temple, they go to loot the jungle temple chest. And on the surface, it may appear as though all the items in this chest are completely normal. However, there's one single item that actually can't spawn in a jungle temple, which is this singular piece of bamboo. Remember this block for later in the run, as it will become extremely important. So, after looting the rest of the jungle temple, the runner then makes his way to a nearby village. But hold on, pause the footage. Did you just see how the runner cheated? Don't worry, I'll replay it for you and see if you can spot it this time. Well, if you pay very close attention to the runner's hotbar, he literally gains an iron ingot out of nowhere. And while one iron ingot may not seem like a big deal, don't worry. This singular item will become very important later in the run. Well, the runner enters the village, and after collecting some beds and gathering some hay, he goes to fight the iron golem. And there's one very suspicious aspect about this golem, and that's the fact that before the runner even touches it, it's somehow already taken damage. But how is that possible? The runner clearly hasn't attacked it a single time all speedrun. Well, if you rewind the footage and pause it right here, you'll actually see that this iron golem is taking damage out of thin air. Okay, is there a ghost on this world that's helping the runner cheat? Well, besides the golem already being a bit damaged, everything else is actually completely normal, as the runner kills it and collects 3 ingots, which he immediately uses to craft an iron pickaxe. But do you remember how I pointed out the runner collecting a suspicious extra ingot when entering the village? Well, that ingot is now incredibly important because he needs to use it to craft flint and steel, which leads me to believe the runner somehow knew he would need 1 extra ingot. Interesting. Well, after crafting an iron pickaxe and flint and steel, the runner's next order of business is searching for a ruins portal. And while he does locate one, something incredibly suspicious happens as he moves closer towards it. I'll play the clip. Did you catch that? Well, I'll replay the clip in slow motion and see if you notice it this time. Well, it actually has nothing to do with the ruins portal itself, but instead the item the runner is holding, because somehow the runner's iron pickaxe that we literally just saw him craft turns into a diamond pickaxe. And not only am I incredibly confused on how that's possible, as all of the diamonds the runner has are clearly still in his inventory, but I think it's obvious the runner did this as the only way to remove crying obsidian is to mine it with a diamond pickaxe. But can someone explain how in the world the runner just did this? Well, the runner makes his way towards the ruins portal, and after looting the chest and removing this block of crying obsidian, he's able to complete the portal and make his way into the Nether. But as the runner is in the middle of teleporting, take a good look into the top right corner of the screen. A player somehow appears out of nowhere, and this is incredibly strange, because I didn't see any join messages in the chat, so how is it possible that a player just appeared? Remember him for later. So, the runner enters the Nether, and let's slow down a bit, as everything actually appears fairly normal. Survival mode, check. No potions in the top right corner, check. The spawn being real, wait a second, let's replay the footage. As you can clearly see, this speedrunner initially spawns in a Nether wastes biome, but just 1 frame later, he's now suddenly in a warped forest biome at a completely different location. And this actually proves that the runner has made a cut in his recording, so when he manages to locate a fortress less than 15 seconds later, it's obvious that when the runner cut the footage, he went off camera, found another fortress, and built an entirely new Nether portal, pretending to spawn there the entire time. This cheating is hilarious. So, the runner quickly locates the fortress, but before things get too crazy, pause the footage at this frame, because if you look into the right side of the screen, you'll actually notice a 2x2 square of blackstone on this wall. And it's more than obvious this is incredibly suspicious and not natural, so make sure to remember it as it will become incredibly important later in the speedrun. So, the runner enters the fortress, where I guess I can give him credit for getting the achievement, and he quickly locates the blaze spawner room. But is it just me, or are there far more blazes than the amount that usually spawn here? Well, there might be a reason for this unusual amount of blazes, because if you pause the footage at this frame, you can quite literally see a second blaze spawner that is somehow floating in the air. And this is obviously fake, but if you still weren't convinced, if we rewind the footage to about 20 seconds earlier, look into the right corner of the screen at this frame, where we can see the exact same player who we briefly saw in the overworld holding a spawner in his hands, meaning his friend has placed this extra blaze spawner for the runner so he could fight far more blazes and collect rods more quickly. So, with 2 blaze spawners at his disposal, he easily collects 7 blaze rods, where a normal speedrunner would then start searching for a bastion. And this speedrunner has the same idea, but after searching for quite a bit of time, he simply can't seem to locate one. Well, that's until this happens. What? The speedrunner literally starts breaking through the air, which somehow reveals a secret tunnel. Okay, hold on, we have to replay that. Am I seeing things? Look, the runner somehow manages to break the sky? What in the world is going on? Well, after somehow finding a secret tunnel, the runner of course heads through it. And just a minute later, when the runner reaches the end of the tunnel, he finds himself directly in front of a bastion. So, the runner somehow manages to locate a bastion when things are suspicious right away. Because just watch what happens. Did you see that? Despite the runner only mining this singular gold block, when he breaks it, 5 of them somehow drop right in front of him. And when he goes to mine his second gold block, another 5 drop from that one too. Which means the runner now has 10 gold blocks, which gives him nearly a stack and a half of gold ingots. Well, with more than enough gold ingots, the runner quickly heads towards a group of piglins and starts to trade with them. And no, nothing about these piglins are fake in the slightest, but there's something else about this part of the run that's absolutely hilarious. Because at the top portion of the screen, you can literally see the runner's friend building some sort of dropper contraption, while he isn't even using a potion of invisibility. And you can also clearly see his friend place a button on it and starts dispensing a bunch of overpowered items for the runner. Okay, hold on. Did his friend think he was out of frame and we couldn't see him literally cheating in 4K? Well, with some help from his friend who needs to work on being more undercover, the runner easily collects all the items he needs and prepares to head into the overworld. But he then makes an incredibly strange decision, because despite having more than enough blocks of obsidian to build the portal, he instead decides to leave the bastion and seems to be looking for a very specific spot. This is getting interesting. Well, the runner continues to search until he travels all the way back to this location, where earlier in the speedrun, I pointed out this incredibly suspicious 2x2 square in the wall. And when the runner starts breaking a 2x2 pathway in this exact location, what? He eventually digs straight into the stronghold. Okay, first off, it's quite simply impossible to travel between dimensions without a nether portal, so how in the world did he just do that? But secondly, was his friend the one who built this 2x2 square here, as a way to remind him of where he needed to dig to somehow find the stronghold? I have so many questions right now. That was insane. So, after somehow making his way into the strongholds, things finally seem to cool off just a bit, because the runner loots a chest and locates the end portal room without an ounce of suspicious activity. But this is quite literally the last time in the speedrun that anything is normal, because when the runner goes to check the portal itself, are you kidding me? Instead of finding end portal frames, he literally finds Minecraft's most overpowered blocks with item frames. This has to be a joke, right? Well, the runner starts placing his eyes in every single item frame, and when he goes to place the final eye, oh my gosh. He actually manages to light the portal, which looks absolutely beautiful. At this point, this speedrun is obviously fake, but it's absolutely fascinating to watch. So, the runner jumps inside this magical looking end portal, and surprisingly, the end actually looks standard, as the runner spawns on an obsidian platform like usual, and he is also still in survival mode without any weird items in his inventory. But, do you remember near the very beginning of the speedrun, when the runner found this random piece of bamboo in the jungle temple? Well, the runner then says this.
Yo, because I have the piece of lucky bamboo, the end will now become insanely overpowered.
Okay, this guy has to be joking, right? There is no way a single piece of bamboo has any power. Oh my gosh. The end is quite literally made out of rainbow lucky blocks. And the pillars are also made out of the exact materials that the end's portal was made. This is the world's most overpowered piece of bamboo. Well, even though this end is absolutely mind-boggling, there's still one problem. Because without a bow and arrow or enough blocks to build up to the pillars, the runner has no way to break any of the crystals. Which means if he wants any shot of defeating the dragon, he needs an attack so powerful, he won't even need the crystals broken. Lucky for him, he happens to be in a world where everything is lucky block. And that's when the runner comes across this. Out of an entire dimension of rainbow lucky blocks, he finds one standard and classic yellow lucky block. And when he breaks it, he's literally given the world's biggest and most menacing looking sword ever. And despite every single crystal still being intact, the runner uses this weapon to one-shot the Ender Dragon. This next speedrun begins, and right away, there's already something I noticed that's incredibly suspicious. And no, it has nothing to do with the runner's hotbar, as he's not only in survival mode, but also has 0 XP. And his world generation look completely normal too, as the runner is facing perfectly straight. But take a good look into the right corner of the screen, where you can actually spot a stone axe on the ground, which leads me to believe the runner was on this world before he started recording and accidentally left behind this single item. And the runner being on the worlds before recording will become very obvious later in the run. So, the speedrun begins with the runner collecting some wood, crafting a few stone tools, and heading towards a nearby shipwreck. But wait a second, pause the footage. Do you see that? Look, on the top left portion of the shipwreck, you can quite literally spot a rainbow chest. And not only is a rainbow chest clearly not a real Minecraft item, but the reason the runner was on the worlds before he started recording was to clearly place down this overpowered chest. And now explains the leftover stone axe. Well, the runner builds up to the shipwreck, where he of course wants to check out the rainbow chest. And inside, he actually finds some pretty normal loot. Some iron ingots, some bread, an obsidian pickaxe. Wait, what? Was an obsidian pickaxe an item that was added in the new update? Well, whether or not this item is real isn't even the important part, because what happens next is absolutely insane. I'll play the clip. What? Using the obsidian pickaxe, the runner mines this block of gravel, and somehow obsidian pops out of it. Meaning this pickaxe has the ability to turn any block into obsidian. Okay, now I'm pretty sure that the runner created this custom item on his own. Well, after collecting all the loot from the shipwreck and collecting 10 pieces of obsidian with the obsidian pickaxe, the runner has more than enough loot and items to build a portal and enter the Nether. But watch closely to what happens as the runner spawns in. Did you catch it? Well, if we rewind the footage to before the runner enters the portal, notice how he's holding the obsidian pickaxe in his inventory. However, after the runner spawns into the Nether, he's now somehow holding a stone pickaxe. And because it's impossible to switch items while in a generation screen, this proves that the runner has made a cut in his recording. So, when the runner locates another fortress literally less than 15 seconds later, it's obvious that when the runner cut the footage, he went off camera and located a fortress, built an entirely new and different Nether portal, and pretended to spawn there the entire time. Come on, man. Hide your cheating better. Well, the runner locates the fortress, where I guess I can give him some credit for getting the achievement. But unfortunately, despite searching for a decent amount of time, the runner simply can't seem to locate a blaze spawner. And this isn't good, as without blazes, the runner can't collect blaze rods, which is a crucial item in Minecraft speedrunning. Well, that's when he decides to type in chat, claiming that he's going to build his own custom blaze spawner, and proceeds to make one of the funniest and most random looking structures that I've ever seen. Okay, first off, I think it's more than obvious there is only one type of blaze spawner in Minecraft. But secondly, does this guy really think these random blocks will actually spawn blazes? Oh my gosh. This quote-unquote custom blaze spawner actually manages to start spawning blazes. But that isn't the only way he's cheated, because let's replay this part of the footage. The speedrunner has magically acquired a fire resistance potion despite him not drinking a single one. But get this, he actually cheats one more time, because after killing the first blaze to come out of the custom spawner, the blaze somehow manages to drop 2 blaze rods, which is literally double the amount a normal blaze is supposed to drop, and clearly means the runner has messed with the game files of this world. So, after fighting a few more blazes at his custom blaze spawner, the runner manages to collect 7 rods, and then begins to search for a bastion. But I'm going to play this part of the speedrun, and let me know if you can catch what's fake about it. That's right. While the runner is in the middle of searching for a bastion, he makes his way towards this specific spot on this wall. And after he turns around, he suddenly finds a bastion right in front of him. Wait a second, this exact same area didn't have a bastion less than 10 seconds ago. So how did one just spawn out of nowhere? Well, it actually means that when the runner was facing this wall, he actually cut his footage, and then somehow spawns an entire bastion on his own, and turns back around, pretending like nothing ever happened. I've caught this guy cheating yet again. So, the speedrunner enters the bastion, and at a first glance, things may appear to be normal, as the runner crafts an iron pickaxe, mines a few gold blocks, and gathers a good amount of ingots. But here's where things get weird, because there is quite literally not a single piglin anywhere in the bastion, which is something that's impossible, as a bastion in Minecraft will always spawn with piglins. And what's even worse is that with no piglins to trade with, the runner has absolutely no way to collect ender pearls. Well, maybe I spoke too soon, because out of nowhere, what? Is that a drone in Minecraft? Okay, hold on. Was this an item in the new update? And wait, the drone is literally carrying ender pearls. Well, the drone is clearly flying in a very specific direction, where we can literally see it deposit ender pearls into the bastion chest. And when the runner goes to open it, he finds an entire stack waiting for him. Which means, despite him not finding a single piglin, the runner is now ready to enter the overworld. Okay, there is no way a drone is a real Minecraft item. Well, with a ton of ender pearls, the runner should head to the overworld next. Here's the problem. He doesn't actually have any obsidian in his inventory, and for some reason, he decided to throw his obsidian pickaxe in lava a few moments ago, which literally makes it impossible for him to build a a nether portal, meaning the only way he could enter the overworld is if he traveled back all the way to his original portal, which is a problem, as it will waste a ton of valuable time trying to find it. Well, that's when the runner starts typing in the chat, explaining he wants to test out a new trick he saw on TikTok, which apparently claims that if you dig down 3 blocks, punch your fist 17 times, and then build back up, you will be teleported to the nearest nether portal? And I'm sorry, but what? There is no way that works. Well, the speedrunner proceeds to dig down exactly 3 blocks, where he punches his fist 17 times, just as he explained. And when the runner builds back up, oh my god! The speedrunner finds himself directly in front of his original nether portal. And look, this trick must have worked because he is quite obviously in an entirely different location. So if anyone can explain how in the world that just happened, that would be incredibly helpful. So the runner somehow teleports to his original nether portal and spawns back into the overworld, where a normal Minecraft speedrunner would then begin searching for the strongholds. And after the runner crafts some eyes of ender, he starts throwing them in the air, using a very popular technique known as triangulation to locate the position of the strongholds. Or, at least that's what I thought he was doing. Because watch, after the runner throws this eye of ender in the air, he literally runs in the complete opposite direction, which is very weird, considering an eye of ender literally points you in the direction of a stronghold. Well, the runner instead decides to run in what appears to be a very specific path. And that's when he finds... What? Is that a submarine in vanilla Minecraft? Was this vehicle added in the new Minecraft update? Well, the runner of course heads into the submarine, where he starts to move underwater in a very specific direction. And just a few seconds later, oh my gosh, the speedrunner has actually managed to locate an underwater stronghold. And not only did he clearly know the location of this structure before he started recording, but he obviously downloaded some sort of mod to use a submarine and get there much faster. So, the runner enters the stronghold, and after looting a stronghold chest, the runner then begins to search for the end portal room. But when he finally locates it, what on earth? The runner finds the world's biggest end portal room that quite literally has 5 end portals lined up in a row. And it doesn't take a genius to know it's impossible for more than 1 end portal to spawn naturally, so I have absolutely no idea what is wrong with this speedrunner's game files. Well, with more than enough end portals to choose from, the runner decides to pick the second one in line and quickly lights it. But I don't think choosing the second portal was the best idea, because when he jumps in and enters the end, what? Not only is the runner not in the end, but he's literally in a super flat world that clearly contains grass instead of endstone. And instead of obsidian pillars, the runner finds dirt pillars. I've lost my mind. Well, the runner quickly builds up and breaks all of the end crystals, and after pulling out a bow and displaying some decent skills, the runner actually manages to kill the ender dragon, which somehow lights the end gateway portal. That was insane. This next speedrun begins, and there's already something fake about it. Because if you look into the bottom left corner of the screen, you can clearly see the message of a player changing their game mode to survival, which not only means the runner was in creative mode before he started recording, but we're gonna find out what he was doing off camera very soon. So, the speedrun begins with the runner collecting some wood, crafting a few tools, and making his way towards a nearby village. Hold on a second. Did you just catch that? Here, I'll replay the footage and see if you can spot what just happened. That's right. In the top right corner of the screen at this frame, you can clearly see another player suddenly appear. And not only does this mean the runner is on a multiplayer server, something that's banned from a solo speedrun, but notice what this other player is holding. A sword that doesn't look like anything from vanilla Minecraft. Which leads me to believe this other player is using custom Minecraft mods, and that will become a big factor later in the speedrun. So, the speedrunner enters the village, and after killing the iron golem and collecting some beds, watch very closely to what happens next. Did you see that? While the runner is making his way around this corner of the village, you can actually spot the runner's friend holding a block of obsidian. And while that may not seem too suspicious on its own, let's take a listen to his audio to figure out what's really happening. As you can very clearly hear, there is a sound of blocks of obsidian being placed. And because the runner's friend was just holding obsidian, it's obvious he was the one who was placing it. So keep this in mind for later in the run. So, the runner loots one more village chest, and after collecting a few extra beds, he then makes his way towards this ruined portal. And I'll pause the footage here, because there's one tiny detail about this portal that's actually fake. Did you catch it? Well, for me to explain what's fake about it, it's important to note the specific type of ruined portal the runner finds, which turns out to be portal_4. Here's the problem. Portal 4 always spawns with a specific number of obsidian blocks, which turns out to be 11. However, when we look at portal_4 in this speedrun, we can clearly see the amount of obsidian is 12. So the only possible way this ruined portal has an extra block of obsidian is if another player placed it manually. And because we just saw the runner's friend holding obsidian and heard the sound of obsidian being placed, I think it's obvious this other player is the culprit. And if you still weren't convinced, this is further confirmed when the runner opens the ruined portal chest, and just so happens to have the exact amount of obsidian he needs to complete the portal. So, the speedrunner completes the portal, lights it, and prepares to spawn into the Nether. But right before the runner is about to enter the portal, take a good look into the left corner of the screen at this tree, where the speedrunner's friend is now holding a block of red wool. And make sure to remember this block, as it's going to be a very big part of the speedrun. So, the runner spawns into the Nether, where I can give him credit for getting the achievement, and he then starts to search for a Nether fortress. And surprisingly, he actually locates a fortress pretty quickly. But unfortunately, the speedrunner has cheated once again. And tell me if you can catch what he did. Did you catch it? Well, if you pause the footage at this frame, you can clearly see a piece of red wool on this wall, which is oddly the exact same block his friend was holding just a few moments ago. And if you play the footage, the runner was clearly following blocks of red wool directly to a fortress, which means the speedrunner's friend was placing these blocks of red wool off camera as a way to direct the runner straight to the fortress. So, the runner enters the fortress, where he doesn't even get the achievement for entering into it, and while he is casually searching for the blaze spawner, what? Take a look at the chat. A message suddenly appears claiming that a player has morphed? What is that supposed to mean? Well, I guess we'll ignore it for now, as the runner finally manages to locate a blaze spawner and starts to fight the blazes as a way to collect blaze rods. But hold on a second. How in the world is the runner already at 7 blaze rods? He literally just started fighting blazes. Well, let's run the footage to this part of the speedrun, where this blaze seems to be moving in a very suspicious way. And if you move ahead even further, you can literally see this exact same blaze start throwing blaze rods in the air. Have you caught on yet? That's right. This isn't actually a real Minecraft blaze, but instead, actually the runner's friend who is using a morph mod. So if we now go back to that strange message we saw a few moments ago, it's pretty clear that message was alerting us that somebody has used a morph mod. This is getting insane. So, after collecting 7 blaze rods in record time, with help from a very fake Minecraft blaze, a normal speedrunner would then begin searching for a bastion. But as the runner is leaving the fortress and starting to begin his search, pause the footage at this frame, where if you look closely, you can actually see the speedrunner's friend holding string in his hands. And this is very odd, as string is a very random item that isn't overpowered at all. So it makes you wonder why the runner's friend is even holding it. Well, the runner leaves the fortress, but all of a sudden, he seems to know the exact direction a bastion is located. And while I can give him credit for locating one very quickly, am I the only one who's a bit suspicious? I mean, let's replay that. Could you catch it? Here, take one final look in slow motion. You see it yet? Well, if you pause the footage at this frame, let's take a good look into the top left portion of the screen, where you can literally see a line of string floating in the air. And so if you play the footage this time, it's now obvious that the runner has been following floating string all the way to the bastion. And because I literally just pointed out his friend holding string a few moments ago, it's pretty obvious he was the one who made this string path, as he was directing the runner straight to a bastion. So, the runner enters the bastion, but things don't get any better, because watch closely to what happens as the runner is mining this gold block. Huh? Despite the runner clearly mining a piece of gold, it somehow drops a diamond block? Wait, what? But that's not all. Because after placing down a crafting table and inserting this diamond block, it somehow gives the runner gold ingots, and to be exact, a full stack of gold ingots. What is going on? And just to make sure I wasn't going crazy, after testing this out in my own Minecraft world, I can 100% confirm a diamond block doesn't give gold ingots. I mean, obviously, how is this possible? Well, after turning a diamond block into a full stack of gold ingots, the runner starts to trade with a group of nearby piglins. And no, nothing about these piglins are fake in the slightest, but there's actually something else that's incredibly suspicious at this part of the speedrun. Because if you look at the top portion of the screen, it appears as though blocks are disappearing in thin air. And due to the fact that another player has been helping throughout the speedrun, my guess is he's the one breaking these blocks, while he's hiding his identity with a potion of invisibility. But how could breaking a few blocks possibly help the runner? Well, once the speedrunner is done with his trades, and has collected all the pearls and obsidian that he needs, he makes his way towards the exact same area where his friend was breaking blocks. And as you can see, his friend has clearly marked out the shape of a nether portal. So when the runner places his obsidian in that exact spot and goes to spawn back in the overworld, oh my gosh, he is somehow teleported directly into the stronghold. And now it makes a lot more sense as to why his friend was breaking these specific blocks. So, the runner enters the stronghold, but unfortunately, the cheating doesn't stop there. Because when the runner locates the end portal room, notice how the portal has spawned with 2 eyes of ender. Got it? Well, the speedrunner turns around to check his inventory, when all of a sudden, what? The speedrunner literally starts playing Roblox? Did he forget that he was in the middle of a Minecraft speedrun? Well, I guess he couldn't resist playing Roblox, and after wasting a ton of valuable time, the runner finally returns to the speedrun. But when he goes to fill the portal, hold on a second. Do you notice what's incredibly fake about this part of the speedrun? That's right, the end portal has magically gained a 3rd eye. And this is fake because before the runner started playing Roblox, it's more than obvious the portal only had 2 eyes of ender. So at this point, I think it's pretty obvious the reason the runner was playing Roblox was not just for fun, but actually as a giant distraction, where the speedrunner could go off camera, place 1 extra eye in the portal, and hoped we wouldn't notice anything happen. This cheating is terrible. So, The runner lights the portal, jumps in, and he's finally made it into the end. And at a first glance, I guess I can give the runner some credit, as he does get the achievement for entering the end. And to add on, it doesn't look like he's gained any strange items in his inventory. Well, he hasn't gained any strange items in these 9 slots, because when the runner opens his full inventory, what? The runner finds some sort of magic wand that is called the Mob Transformer? Was this an item that was added in the brand new Minecraft update? Well, the runner clearly wants to test this item out, so he quickly types in chat asking his friend to come to the end. And I don't really know how to explain what happens next, so I think it's best I just show you. Are you seeing this? This magical wand somehow has the power to turn his friend into another Ender Dragon. I'm still confused on whether or not this is a real Minecraft item. Well, the runner sits back and watches as his friend flies towards the surface of the end. And as you can clearly see, the dragon 1v1 has started. Well, I guess the speedrunner's friend was feeling extra clutch today, because after only a minute of fighting, he actually ends up destroying the real Ender Dragon. And all the speedrunner has to do is jump in the portal. This next speedrun begins with the runner spawning directly next to a desert pyramid. And while there's technically nothing fake about the spawn, the odds of spawning directly next to a desert pyramid are between 1 and 3%, so this is definitely something to look out for. Either way, the run begins with the speedrunner collecting some wood, crafting a few tools, and moving towards the desert pyramid. There's just one slight issue. If you look at this specific part of the pyramid, there's actually one detail that reveals he's cheated. And that's the fact that these 2 blocks are red terracotta, when a real desert pyramid has orange terracotta. And this actually means the runner has been on the world before he started recording, which will make a lot more sense incredibly soon. So, the runner heads inside the desert pyramid. But hold on a second, did you catch that? While the runner is entering the pyramid, you can quite literally see another player who is wearing a sandstone skin and trying to blend in. And not only does this mean the runner is on a multiplayer server, something banned from a solo speedrun, but make sure you remember this other player, as he's going to become a crucial part of the speedrun. So, the runner enters the pyramid, and after digging down and avoiding the pressure plate, he starts to loot the pyramid chests. And the first 3 chests he loots actually contain completely normal items. However, when the runner opens the 4th chest, take a look and see if you can spot which item here is fake. Well, I think it's quite clearly this rainbow slime ball in the top right corner of the screen. And not only does this item clearly not exist in vanilla Minecraft, but you're not going to believe how the runner uses it later in the run. So, the runner collects all of his loot, leaves the pyramid, and then manages to locate a nearby village. But that's when the runner sees, what? Is that a Pillager outpost? Okay, hold on a second. This is quite simply impossible, as Pillager outposts literally can't spawn inside of villages in Minecraft. So how did it get here? Well, if you rewind the footage all the way back to the beginning of the speedrun, you can clearly see another player on the right side of the screen. And not only is this the exact same player who is blending in with the desert pyramid, but take a look at the blocks in his inventory. Dark oak logs, a chest, and even cobblestone, which just so happen to be 3 of the exact same blocks that are a part of a Pillager outpost. And this leads me to believe that while the runner was busy looting the desert pyramid, this other player was actually building an entire Pillager outpost by himself. And this is made incredibly obvious when the runner goes to loot the outpost chests, because he finds some of the most important items to enter the Nether: obsidian, flint and steel, and even fire resistance, which are all 3 items that can't even spawn naturally in this location. So, After collecting his loot from the Outpost chests and killing the iron golem without an ounce of suspicious activity, you're probably expecting the runner to use his obsidian to craft a nether portal and head into the nether. But before the runner does that, he decides he wants to loot the chest in this village house. And no, the loot in this chest isn't fake in the slightest. It actually contains some pretty useless items. But while the runner is looting it, let's take a quick look out of this window, where we can actually spot the runner's friend switch from a sandstone skin to a nether brick skin. But why in the world would the runner need to be wearing a nether brick skin? Just keep that in mind. Well, after looting the chest and collecting a few extra beds, the runner builds a nether portal and prepares to head into the nether. But right before the runner is about to enter the portal, hold on a second. Are you seeing the absolute madness that is happening in the distance? Here, take a look. In the far and back right corner of the desert, you can see the runner's friend building a nether portal out of thin air. Wait a second. He's actually placing blocks of nether portal. There's no obsidian at all. And the nether portal block isn't even an item in vanilla Minecraft. I have no idea what's happening anymore. So, the runner finally enters the nether, and right away, let's give him some credit, as he does get the achievement in the bottom left corner of the screen, and he clearly has the exact same items as he did in the overworld. But as the runner is starting to search for a nether fortress, pause the footage at this frame, because there's one single detail that raises a big amount of suspicion. Do you see it? Well, look into the left side of the screen, where you'll actually spot a piece of warped fungus, which in itself isn't fake in the slightest, as it clearly looks the exact same as one you'd find in a real speedrun. Here's the problem. Warped fungus can actually only spawn in two specific nether biomes, which are a crimson forest and warped forest biome, which as you can clearly see, is not the biome that the runner is in, which means the only possible way it's gotten here is if the speedrunner's friend built it himself off camera. Well, the runner of course wants to check out the piece of warped fungus, where he moves closer towards it and decides to break these specific blocks. And that's when, what? The runner uncovers a secret ladder under the fungus, which actually leads the runner directly into a nether fortress. And at this point, it's more than obvious the runner's friend located a fortress, built a secret ladder and warped fungus directly above it, and pretended like it spawned there naturally the entire time. But I just caught them cheating in 4K. So, the runner falls down into the fortress, where I can give him some credit for getting the achievement. However, the cheating starts to get downright hilarious at the nearby blaze spawner, because at a first glance, it may look like the runner is collecting blaze rods extremely quickly and without an ounce of suspicious activity. However, do you remember how earlier in the speedrun, I pointed out the runner's friend switching from a sandstone skin to a nether brick skin? Well, when the runner turns around in the blaze spawner room, oh my gosh. You can literally see the runner's friend blending in with his surroundings once again. And just moments later, he accidentally reveals he's holding blaze rods in his hands. Meaning the only reason the runner was collecting blaze rods so quickly was because his friend was secretly throwing him extra while we weren't looking. So, after collecting 7 blaze rods, mostly coming from his friend, a normal speedrunner would then begin searching for a bastion. And this speedrunner must have the same idea, because he quickly leaves the fortress and begins his search. But on his way, what? The runner finds a giant Minecraft creeper statue. What in the world? Wait, did the speedrunner's friend build this? Well, while you may be thinking this statue is incredibly unimportant, it actually serves one single purpose, and that is to be a distraction. Because while the runner is pretending to be mesmerized by the statue, take a good look into the right corner of the screen, where a bastion suddenly appears out of thin air. Wait a second, what? And not only does this prove that this statue was a distraction, but genuinely Secondly, how in the world did a Bastion just generate out of nowhere? I'm so confused. Well, after a Bastion literally spawns out of thin air, the runner of course heads towards it. And to my surprise, despite it spawning out of nowhere, the Bastion itself is actually completely normal, as the runner collects gold blocks, turns them into ingots, and finds a group of piglins. Everything a normal Minecraft speedrunner would do. But I think I might have spoke just slightly too soon. Because when the runner turns around, are you kidding me? This is the goofiest piglin that I've ever seen in Minecraft. Because not only is he made out of pink wool and crimson fences, but the runner has somehow created a custom Minecraft painting that is supposed to be the piglin's head. And you know what? I will give credit to the runner, because this quote-unquote piglin is actually pretty hilarious. Well, because this piglin is definitely not real, it's more than obvious it can't trade. What? Did you just see that? This Wish.com piglin actually starts to throw items directly at the speedrunner. Seriously, how is that possible? But there's still more. Because this piglin gives the runner a full stack of ender pearls, meaning the runner doesn't even have to worry about any of the real piglins and can already leave the Bastion. That was insane. Well, after the runner collects a full stack of ender pearls, he has actually made one giant mistake. Because although he did get very lucky with his trades, you'll actually notice he didn't get that lucky with obsidian, because he notices that he only has 5 blocks, which is half the amount you need to build a nether portal. But this doesn't seem to be a huge problem for the runner, because he starts to build one of the goofiest looking portals that I've ever seen. Seriously, the speedrunner alternates between blocks of obsidian and pieces of blackstone. Is this guy new to Minecraft? This portal clearly won't work. Well, the runner insists on pulling out flint and steel anyway, where he tries to light the portal multiple times, but clearly can't. But that's when he starts to type in chat, claiming that he has an idea. What idea could he possibly have? There is physically no way he's going to light this portal. Well, do you remember back near the very start of the speedrun, when the runner found this rainbow slime ball in a desert pyramid chest? Well, the runner decides to pull out that item. And when he tries to light the portal this time, oh my gosh. He actually manages to light the nether portal despite half of the blocks literally being blackstone. And when he hovers over this rainbow slime ball, he actually reveals that it's called the magical portal igniter. Well, the runner somehow lights the portal, enters it, and makes his way back into the overworld. And right away, there's something incredibly suspicious about the speedrunner spawn, because let's replay the footage and take a very close look at what just happened. Could you catch it? Well, as the runner is spawning into the overworld, notice how the durability on his iron pickaxe completely changes, which is very strange, considering it's impossible for an item to change durability between loading screens, which leads me to believe the runner has made some sort of cut in his recording, and this will make a lot more sense in a few seconds. Well, the runner spawns back into the overworld, and after using the process of triangulation, he seems to think the stronghold is located under this very block. And to my surprise, the runner is actually correct, because he eventually falls straight down into the stronghold. But did you catch what was obviously fake about this part of the run? Well, if you've been paying attention, you'll actually notice the runner only mines cobblestone blocks on the way to the stronghold. Here's the problem. Cobblestone blocks only spawn naturally in generated structures like a village or a mansion, but never spawn naturally in the ground. Which means the only way these cobblestone blocks are here is if they were placed manually. And And because the runner's iron pickaxe suddenly lost a ton of durability out of nowhere, this is what happened. First, the speedrunner cut the footage, then dug down and located the exact location of the stronghold, but accidentally refilled in his path with cobblestone, which reveals this entire part of the speedrun is fake, and the runner wasn't actually using triangulation. So, the runner falls into the stronghold, where if you needed any more proof, he doesn't even get the achievement for entering it. However, I can give him some credit as the loot in this chest is actually completely normal, and he then locates the end portal room without an ounce of suspicious activity. But that's when this happens. The speedrunner's friend suddenly appears out of nowhere and manages to light the end's portal without a single eye of Ender. And if somebody can please explain how that's even possible, that would be very helpful. So, after entering an end's portal that literally doesn't even have eyes of Ender, the runner finally finds himself in the end, where to his credit, the Ender Dragon does have full health. He's clearly still in survival mode, and he hasn't gained any weird items in his inventory. But when the runner makes his way to the surface, he starts to type in chat and is typing a very specific command, which appears to be a command that gives the runner an item called the Dragon Nuke. This item looks pretty scary. Well, he quickly moves it into his hands, and after waiting for the dragon to perch, the runner clicks the dragon nuke. What? The runner literally one-shots the ender dragon while he's clearly extremely far away from it, which means this dragon nuke is one of the craziest weapons in Minecraft history. Click a video on screen now to watch even funnier fake Minecraft speedruns.